Hey guys, it's Mountain Lock, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about, well, I guess you probably have something something of an idea. We're gonna be talking about The Rock, baby. The Rock. So, back in the day, long time ago, ancient history of magic. I think this is like 97, no, more like 98. God, it must have been like 98, 99. When it was like Phyrexian Plague Lord. That was the guy that was in the original black-green rock deck. And he was apparently the Rock. Anyways, around 1999, of course, if you guys are wrestling fans, you watched that kind of stuff back in the day when I was a kid, or young adult, or I mean, just a kid, really. Um, he was big back in the day. I mean, he's still big. Look, The Rock is big. He's just only getting bigger. I mean, literally, this guy just keeps getting bigger. It's insane. How big is he gonna get? I mean, oh my God, he's amazing. He's our generation's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's enormous. He's bodybuilder. He's got a ton of charisma. He's got a pile of money. He's extremely famous. He's extremely interesting. I mean, I love him. I love him. Anyways, we don't need to go on into too far about that, but um, he's a big guy, pretty important. Anyways, black green deck based around Phyrexian Plague Lord, sacking stuff to kill stuff, yada yada yada. And so this is basically what would end up becoming the sort of first mid-range kind of deck, at least to my knowledge. Well, yeah, at least the best example of it is the Rock. That's like the first best mid-range style deck. Um, I mean, originally, unfortunately, these early deck lists were a little more fortunate than us. They could play stuff like Bayou, as well as Vamp Tutor. And so there was a little bit more the decks were more similar in nature to each other. But now, I mean, after they rotated or were banned or whatever, it's a huge variation deck lists. I don't think I've seen, for the most part, I don't think I've seen anyone with. There's no one sees the two same deck lists of the Rock, right? So there's, I mean, are you gonna play mana producers like birds and elves? Maybe just birds? Are you gonna play, Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossoms? Like how many of each? More Wall of Blossoms, more Wall of Roots. What about removal? Some people only play a little bit. Some people play more than a little bit. Which spells? I mean, because obviously you have Smother, Chainer's Edict, Diabolic Edict. I mean, there's the number of options is just it's crazy. So there's so many different things you can play, and it's different numbers too. It's like, oh, everyone plays all of these cards, but different numbers to preferences to metagame considerations. And the way I tried to approach it was trying to balance it for like a unknown metagame, for a metagame where I don't expect too much of any one particular deck. And that's just how Premodern is kind of at the moment. I mean, there again, like I said in my previous video, there are decks that we know that are tier 1 that we want to look out for. But other than that, I mean, want a more balanced kind of approach. At least that's what I like to take when I play this deck. So I don't want too much of X, too much of Y, too many anti-aggro cards, too many anti-control cards. I want to sort of make it balance, and I think I've actually I struck a pretty good balance. Pretty good. But not actual balance, which is pretty amazing. which is actually, now to think about it, I remember Burning Wishing for balance and Burning Long in 2003. That deck was sweet. Yeah, think about your combo decks in Vintage. Burning Wishing for balance. You're already Burning Wishing for Yawgmoth's as well, but Burning Wish for balance, that's just, oh, unbelievable. Anyways, I digress, of course. Try to balance the list for an unknown metagame, and so it is balanced, and obviously, again, same thing with the sideboard, and like I mentioned in my previous video, really, this deck, probably more than anyone else, you really want to look at your 75 in total versus just your 60 or your 15 in isolation. So let's look at the deck without further ado. So here we go. This is the big one. This is the big boy. And so a lot of these cards you'll see in a lot of different deck lists. You got the removal. Yeah, you got the Pernicious Deed and the Spiritmongers, which are basically half the reason to play the friggin' thing. Pernicious Deed is probably the reason, with maybe like Cabal Therapy coming up second, or maybe as important as Pernicious Deed. Anyways, got a lot of different moving parts, got a lot of different things going on. Got like a lot of big fatties. Got some mana ramp, got some walls to block against the aggro decks, got the discard against the control decks, removal against whatever decks that's appropriate against, and then some recursion, a little bit of card draw, a little bit of mana ramp, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then the sideboard, of course. We'll just take out all the bad cards that are bad against whatever particular deck, which is kind of nice when you're playing a mid-range deck. It's pretty easy to sideboard sometimes because you can just I'm playing this combo, well, out go all my single target creature removal spells, in more discard and graveyard hate and all sorts of nasty stuff. Oof. Naturalize. Oh, those poor decks, those poor combo decks. How are they gonna deal? They can't. It's too powerful. So many different things. I don't even know where to start. There's so many. A lot of these cards are all pretty familiar, but basically you wanna play something like Call of the Herd. Call of the Herd's so very good in this deck because, again, it's good against control decks, and it's good against aggro decks. Obviously it's a little bit weaker versus the combo decks, because all you really want is just discarding a clock. Obviously the Call of the Herd counts as a clock, although pretty much anything that beats down will work. So it's a little weaker in the combo matchups, but it's still pretty good there, because you need enough dorks to get them before they can draw or tutor out of being empty-handed. So but yeah, there's lots of new interesting cards. Hystrodon, that thing is awesome. That's my tech, baby. That's my tech. And this deck has sort of a beast sub theme, obviously, with Spiritmonger and Ravenous Baloth, and it's very good against the red decks, because you can obviously, huge dorks are great against the red decks. So are the 800 walls or whatever you're playing. But being able to sacrifice your beasts to be able to gain life is pretty awesome. That's great. Makes it real hard to lose against a lot of the red decks. So that's really nice. As well as being able to sacrifice your guys is great against something like Swords to Plowshares, because you gain life, which gives you a little bit more breathing room. Even against control decks, that can be important. But as well as keeps them in your graveyard for recursion. So speaking of control decks, any control deck, or maybe even some combo decks, depending, one of my favorite strategies. This deck is so dirtily, but it plays a lot of stuff. I want to destroy your hand. I want to destroy your creatures in play. I want to destroy your lands or whatever. I want to do X. I want to do Y. You just want to destroy stuff. They got a big graveyard. But the best thing you can do, because these games almost always go long against control decks, Haunting Echoes. Ooh, 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 that's awesome. 100%. Cannot recommend more. I would always recommend at least 1 to 2 copies of Haunting Echoes in a lot of your black heavy decks for the most part. If you're like going like a super heavy attrition route, even in my Tog deck, I played like a singleton copy of Echoes, in my sideboard, I should say. I'm not sure if that's better than Upheaval, but again, another small digression. But Haunting Echoes is so powerful. It's a very unique effect. I mean, a lot of times if you get this thing to resolve, it's like 5 mana win the game. So even just basing your strategy around just sort of attritioning them until you can cast that, and they can't do anything, is just really, really good. And it's one of the better ways to beat the board control decks, because they don't have any counter magic, so you can draw into that guy and just cast it, and oof, that's good stuff. So that's one of my favorite cards against those style decks. Recurring Nightmare. I would always play one. There's no reason not to play one. I've seen people not to play one, and I couldn't think of any reason why you wouldn't. One is perfect, amazing. It turns, like in control matchups, it turns all your walls, any late drawn birds or whatever into, well, Ravenous Baitloffs, another big fatties, Yavimaya Elders to draw more cards, and so on and so forth. And Hystrodon's so good because you can just, they kill it, they counter it, bam, get the Hystrodon back again. I mean, I guess let's talk about Hystrodon a little bit more. It's so good against a lot of the control decks, especially post board. You bring in more duress, you can clear the way a lot easier for Hystrodon, and that's one hell of an Ophidian. And it's basically been a pet card of mine forever since it came out, and I love the card. It's like Orin Viper. I love Orin Viper. Unfortunately, I can't play it in this format, but God, it'd be so sweet if you could. I mean, Cold Snap was an Ice Age block, right? Anyways, Hystrodon sweet. I guess I should say, because you go first turn birds, and you can play your morph Hystrodon. And then you can unmorph for the next turn, and then just draw some cards, and it's most of the time you'll play it later. If you're playing against control decks, because you don't want it to be countered, you'll throw out your other crap or make them discard stuff or whatnot, and then be able to beat with your Hystrodon, and then bam, start raking in those cards, baby. And it's so good against the control decks. It's so good. And it's 5 mana, so the higher mana cost stuff, more synergy with Pernicious Deed, which is probably the best card in the deck. I mean, there's just not a lot of times where they're ever boarded out. There's so many artifacts and enchantments and stuff, and of course creatures and crap like that are all over this format. So you really need a good way to answer them, and stuff that resolves. So just drawing a late game deed, it just does everything. It's wonderful. I guess I don't need to tell you how good Pernicious Deed is, right? It's a 3 mana sweeper. Anyways, play your 1 Recurring Nightmare. There's no reason not to. It is amazing. I'd say this thing is about as an auto include as anything else. Same thing with the Volrath Stronghold. I like playing a bunch of lands. There's very little downside to just playing your 1 Volrath Stronghold. Pretty good. Okay, a lot of these decks play Living Wish. It's not something you'd ever want to play as a 4 of. There's too many cards in your sideboard that are kind of like, there's just not a lot of good wish targets. Being able to wish for like Genesis, or maybe Faceless Butcher, as well as Dust Bowl. That's pretty good, but other than that, it's kind of wonky. It's just not that great. I mean, it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it. If only it takes up like 3 or 4 cards, I think it's fine. It's like a 2 of, but it's not really what you're looking for, like to really, because it just eats up too much sideboard space. There's too many kind of mediocre things. Like, yeah, Withered Wretch is good, but it's really mana intensive. Like Double Black is kind of hard in the early game, so being able to like, oh, I want a Living Wish, and then cast my Withered Wretch, and then I need the mana to activate it. I mean, it's a little slow, not really going to work. I don't think it's very good. I think Withered Wretch is kind of a trap in this style deck. You just want crypts, I think. Tormod's crypts for Graveyard Hate versus the combo decks. We don't really want to bring in the Haunting Echoes for the most part, I think, against the combo decks. Crypt is where it's at. So yeah, and Living Wish, I think you always want 4 Cabal Therapy. There's not really, I mean, it's just the best thing. It turns, again, some of your stuff that's kind of only good in certain matchups. Late game Birds of Paradise, your walls, Yavimaya Elder, whatever. Even if your fatties, you can use it to flashback. You really want the 4 Cabal Therapy. I mean, you just want to get really good with this card. Obviously, you'll have Duress too, at least some of the main deck and sideboard or whatever, to obviously help cast it, but I guess you can do an entire article on or YouTube video on Cabal Therapy. Not worth it to really go over it here yet, but Cabal Therapy is the best one. Lots and lots of discard. If you know the right cards to name, then you'll be good to go. And this deck is very similar to Jund, and that these mid-range decks are basically good at some stuff, but not really good at everything. It seems like you should be pretty okay with against the mono red decks, but they can come out pretty fast, and you can kind of draw like the wrong cards sometimes. So typically you should be pretty good against the mono red decks, which is good. And of course the main deck Hystrodons are great against land still. You can definitely create situations where you're just, you end up just playing your Hystrodons, your last card, and they're just can't do anything about it. And that's really good. So yeah, it seems pretty solid. I think the current list that I have against Sly and Land Still, which is really where you want to be at least, and then cards for combo decks and other random stuff. Engineer Plagues, of course, for goblins, which is should have like, I played this kind of matchup before, and it's basically like 50-50-ish kind of. But yeah, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful against these decks. Duress is obviously terrible. Therapy's really good. But yeah, don't just think, oh, I'm hiding behind one fatty. Well, they can gem palm it and then swing at you for a bajillion. So you gotta be careful, because it doesn't function like Sly, where they can't just randomly burn you out of nowhere. But if you're just relying on like some walls or some fatties to hold the ground, that's not going to work against like multiple pile drivers or something. So Engineer Plague is pretty good in that respect. So you can basically tune it against everything, especially in the sideboard. So it's pretty good. You just gotta kind of read the metagame right. You can tune it to your play style or expected metagame. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this deck. It's pretty sweet, and it's really powerful because it's the Rock, and he just keeps getting bigger and stronger and more ripped as he gets older, which is unbelievable. This guy's huge. He's really big. So yeah. What we'd really like is Vampiric Tutor. I mean, yeah, we really want Vampiric Tutor. I'll say it a million times. We really want Vampiric Tutor, but we can't get it. Again, like I said, we really want to. You got to pay attention to your main deck and sideboard. This deck doesn't, like other mid-range decks, you don't really auto lose to anything, but I mean, you do kind of have the problem where you draw the wrong half of your deck at the wrong time, which is not good, especially against any of the faster decks. They can really punish you. You just get double fire blasted and then you're dead. But it is a strong deck. It's got a lot of recursion, so it can go long very, very well. And so if any deck's not really pressuring you very much, I mean, you can really grind them out, especially with like Recurring Nightmare, Volrath Stronghold. Anything is just a live draw. It's pretty sweet. So that's really where you want to be. Anything slow, you got a great chance against them. But you really want to plan out your turns after that. But that's it. Sky's the limit, baby. You got yes, Spiritmonger and Pernicious Deed, you can't lose. It's the best thing of all time. And that's basically it. That's basically it, guys. So thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this. I really like this deck. It's pretty fun. I don't play it too much. I played the Rock so many times. Basically, when I first started playing Magic and a couple years after that, it's like I feel like I am the Rock. I played it so much, I've become the Rock. I am Dwayne Johnson. So, that's always good news. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. Have a nice day.